Hey, I'm Chris Roth, the professional prospector, and today I'm out in the hinterlands of Nevada doing a little metal detecting. I apologize in advance for the bad wind noise on this video. There's just no other option other than not film. And I'm having such a great day, I'm getting a lot of gold quartz. So let me show you what I'm doing and we'll talk about it. But you know, hard rock mines, and especially rich hard rock mines, are an area that a lot of metal detectors, guys and gals, don't bother with, they don't think about. And so I'm here to show you that, you know, these kinds of places can be really productive. This morning I came out here and I went out and was wandering through some of the old mine dumps and across some of the hills out here, and you know, I dug a bunch of blasting cap fragments, which that's one of the things about hard rock mines. You're gonna dig a lot of blasting cap fragments because when they do the dynamite or whatever explosive they're using and they set it off, if you've got blasting caps, they're little metal blasting caps, they're gonna fragment in the explosion into a zillion little pieces, and then they get pushed out into the dumps and metal detectors see them. That's why a lot of metal detectors get frustrated with that, but you have to be willing to dig a little trash in order to find some gold. Well, I was wandering around. This is where I'm standing, is a dozer pad. This is not an old mine working that the old timers did. It's a pad that somebody in the old days, probably in the 50s or 60s, when it was a lot easier to go out and do some work like this. They could come out with a bulldozer, and as long as you didn't do too much damage, you didn't need a permit, and they would cut things like this as a part of exploring the property to see if they could find anything. Well, they actually at this spot cleared off a little high-grade gold quartz vein, and apparently they didn't notice it because they didn't dig on it, but boy, my metal detector said there's gold here. And so I've been digging and I've got quite a few pieces, and in this video I'm going to show you how to go from finding the gold pieces when you're out in the field down to the end of actually having a button of gold that you could sell or do whatever with, make into jewelry, that sort of thing. So how to go from an interesting gold specimen that maybe doesn't have enough to be super valuable as a specimen, but certainly can be converted to gold. And that's what we're going to talk about today. But today, in this windy situation, because I'm up kind of basically at the top of a hill, it's going to be a situation where we got wind noise. I'll do as much as I can in post-production to minimize the wind noise and accentuate my voice. But I'm going to show you a little bit. I've basically been digging in just one little area that's about 3 feet in diameter, and I've found so far about 15 pieces. But I'm back with a bigger pick and my detector, and we're going to dig a little bit more and see if I can't find some more gold. Okay, let's do that.
So here I am looking to expand my finds. You know, if you ever find in one place more than just a couple of pieces of gold, if you ever, you know, and even if it's, you know, 2 or 3 or 4, but especially if it's more than 4 or 5, something like that, you need to be sure to do everything you can to expand your finds, to basically to see if there isn't more there. And the reason is it's the basic reason that if the geology is right for more than, you know, 2 or 3 pieces to be there, well, maybe the geology is right for there to be 10 pieces or 20 pieces or 50 pieces or more. And so, you know, you want to expand and test the area over and over again to make sure that, you know, you've got all the gold that's there, because you don't want to leave anything behind. That's definitely not what you want to do. And you can see here that I'm just digging this hole out, and now I'm starting to go ahead and go over it with a metal detector and test it and see, you know, what I can find with my metal detector. And what I'm going to do is expand the hole a little bit at a time And then also knock down any piles, like they're just there. If you dig out of a spot and you pile up some dirt, you need to go over that pile. And especially if you got small targets like quartz gold, like I'm finding here. You know, some of these targets don't sound off from a great distance, because even though the piece of rock might be decent sized, it may not have a huge amount of gold in it. And so your detector may not detect it from a great distance. So you may have a pile of dirt 3 or 4 or 5 inches tall. And if there's a piece of gold at the bottom that can only be detected from an inch away, and it's buried with 3 or 4 inches of soil on top of it, then, you know, you're not going to be having much luck with detecting that. So I keep knocking down these piles, spreading the material out, and rechecking to see if I can't find any pieces of gold in there that were in the dirt pile that I might have missed because they were a little bit on the small side. So here I've found a target, and I'm going over it, and it was giving me a good signal that it was non-ferrous. And so I'm starting to dig on it and see if I can't locate the target. It was a pretty strong target. You might ask why I'm using the gold monster with the smallest coil. You know, why am I doing that? Well, I'm going over because a lot of quartz gold tends to be really small, and you want to be able to see small gold. And so the gold monster with the small coil gives you the best target. Well, see, I pulled it out. This is a pretty good sized chunk of vein. It's just a couple inches square, and there's nothing I can see. And I kind of blew the dust off there, but I couldn't see any gold, and we'll talk about that more in a minute. But I'm checking the hole, and yeah, that was the target. There's nothing else there. So that big chunk of quartz was definitely a target. And like I say, it was a fairly strong target. So I continued to test and look, and I got another target here, and I'm guessing it's the piece of quartz in my hand. And so I'm testing around, and there doesn't seem to be any target. And so here I'm testing that piece of quartz out again and just making sure, put it back on the ground, and yep, it's got a signal. So, hey, congratulations. I found myself a nice piece of gold quartz, another large one. I put that with my pile.
Okay, so I'm back from my trip to the desert, and I've got my gold that I detected, or my quartz specimens that I detected. I haven't even washed them off, so I wanted to share with you washing them off. Now, just in case there's any particles of gold adhering to this, I'm washing it off in a pan, and I'll test the material once I get the, you know, all this stuff washed off. I've got a loop here because I'm sure some of it's gonna require looking at with a loop, but usually if it's detectable with the metal detector, you know, if the metal detector sounds off good, it's gonna be pretty easily visible. So let me get started with this, and I'll show you some of the pieces as I'm getting it done. One of the things about these pieces is that they're covered with caliche, which is gonna make seeing the gold a lot harder, because part of the quartz is gonna be just covered over with, you know, calcium deposits and caliche, and make it hard to see. But in the end, I'm going to crush them anyways. Unless there's some kind of really good looking specimen, it's probably going to get crushed. I'll keep going. You know, this big piece sounded off pretty good with my metal detector, and yet going over it with a loop, I can't see anything. Part of the problem is, like I say, the rocks are covered in caliche, so that just kind of coats over everything, makes it harder to see what's underneath the caliche. But also, I just don't see anything, and yet the metal detector was real sure this had good gold in it. So it's going to get crushed. This bigger piece, the pointy end sounded off, and yeah, I can see a couple of little pieces of gold in this pointy end. I'll take my my electric voltmeter, and I'll check the conductivity between, because it's kind of on one side and on the other. One of the ways to tell how much gold there is you can touch both sides with your conductivity voltmeter when it's set on conductivity, and they'll tell you if the gold is connected electrically through the rock. Okay, here is a whole bunch of smaller rocks that I detected, and some of these have visible gold on them, even just, you know, without even washing them off, I could see the gold. So I'm going to put these all in there and wash them off good and see what I get out of them. I can see a little bit of gold on this one, but not very much. Like I say, the problem is they're covered with caliche, which coats the rock and makes it hard to see things. This one has a decent piece of gold on it. It's kind of coated in black though, it's kind of unusual. That one has a nice little veinlet of gold that goes little, you know, crack fill of gold. All right, well, I also collected some pieces that were, they didn't sound off on my metal detector, but they were the same appearance of quartz, and so thinking maybe they've got some little tiny pieces in them that aren't big enough or aren't enough to sound off on the metal detector, but they might still have some gold in it. So I'm going to look at that set of quartz that I gathered right now. Well, the next step I'm going to do now is I'm going to take the stuff that sounded off on the metal detector and the stuff that didn't sound off on the metal detector but came from the same spot and looked the same. I'm going to crush them both, but I'm crush them separately, and then we'll pan them out to see what the results are. So let's take a look at that now. Before I get started with actually crushing the rock, I thought I'd show you a couple of pieces of the rock that I detected and the gold that's sticking out. You can see on the upper right corner of this, you see a little line of gold, and then also in the middle part of the rock, kind of in the middle of the photo, there's some gold poking up through the side of the rock as well. And there's other gold showing on this, but I just thought it'd give you a picture to kind of see close up some of the gold that the detector was seeing. Here's another rock with gold poking out the end of it and visible in various parts on the rock. It's hard to show in a picture like this because in a microscope the field of view is pretty flat and narrow, and so you know, you get one piece in focus and other pieces aren't in focus. Anyway, you can see that there is gold in this, and although a lot of it was covered with the caliche, there certainly was visible gold in a number of the pieces that I found with my detector. But nothing that's really spectacular, and so I am moving forward with giving it a crush, and we will get to that now. So here's a shot of all the pieces that I took. Now, some of these you can see gold in quite easily, but not in this shot like this. So you have to look at them real close. But the bigger pieces, you know, I've got little ones, I've got medium ones, and I've got a couple of big ones. The bigger pieces, even the medium ones, even some of the smaller ones, have a significant coating of caliche on them. And you can kind of see this. You know, there's not really a lot of quartz here easily visible because it's coated with caliche, but you can still see the gold sticking out. And so the next move was to go ahead and crush them up. Okay, so I've got my little jaw crusher here. This is an assay lab sample crusher. It's a real small thing, and I can take this and run it by hand, and you know, the jaw crusher has one piece that's stationary and the other piece moves like this, and so what I am going to do is just back and forth at the pinch point. See, it moves like this, and then as it goes down it opens up and lets more material down and then crunches it. So I'm just going to go back and forth along the pinch point to try and crush as much of this rock as I can, just using the jaw crusher, because if I use my hammer mill, the chains beat up the rock so much, the gold actually gets rolled up into little balls and smeared all over on the inside of the drum of the hammer mill or the chain mill. And so I really want to do as much as I can with this. So let me do a little bit of this, and I won't make you look at it all. but then I'll bring you back and show you when we sort it out. I will screen it and take a look at what we got.
So here I am going ahead and just like I say, rocking it back and forth and crushing it real finely so that the rock is small. I want to get as much crushing done with the jaw crusher as I can. This helps minimize over crushing and making too much of the stuff into dust.
It seems to be working, seems to be crushing it up.
Here's the material all crushed, and with this view you can see the white of the quartz, whereas in the one I showed you before crushing you just saw that brown kind of tan colored caliche. Anyway, I tried to screen this and look through it. Sometimes when you have coarser gold, you can literally pick the pieces out on a screen, but this didn't work. There are a lot of these smaller pieces. The little chunks of quartz you see are in the range of 1/4 inch to 3/8 of an inch in size, and I looked at a number of them, and a number of the pieces of quartz have smaller bits of gold in them, and so I'm going to have to take it and crush it all the way down to fine sand and powder, and that'll be the next step that I do. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and do this. I'm doing this as a voiceover. This is just me doing the crushing, feeding it in there. You can see how there isn't even enough that you can see it in the white bucket, but I'm just feeding it in a little at a time, being careful. I have done other videos on my little dustless crushing setup. In fact, I have a whole dustless crushing video, and I'll put a link to it here up here in the corner so that you can see it. But let me show you a little bit more about my crushing. I'm doing this, you know, it's doesn't take me more than a couple minutes to do this crushing, but let me show you what's inside that's spinning around there and doing the crushing of the rock. Here's what's on the inside of that drum. It's just a few lengths of chain that spin around at a real high rate of speed, and as they spin, they smash into the rock and throw it against the walls of the cylinder, and between all that flying around and smashing around, it breaks up the rock pretty good. Once the rock has been broken up small enough, there's a screen at the bottom of the drum that once it's small enough, it'll pass through the screen. It goes out into my dust collector, where the material drops down and is caught in a bucket. The vacuum that runs the thing is a shop vac, and it catches any dust that might go through the system. So I took the crushed material and I panned it out, and this is what I got. You can clearly see this is several grams of gold, so I got a nice return. And you can also see it's kind of dirty. I've got some black sand there. This stuff was really, really hard to pan because I had some real fine gold in there that I didn't want to lose. I had non-magnetic black sand that I couldn't pull out with a magnet. And then the gold itself is rounded into little spheres. Let me show you. This is a close-up of that same shot, actually, and you can see that a lot of the gold, most of the gold, is rolled up into little round spheres. And this stuff is a lot harder to pan than normal gold flakes and nuggets that are flattish or will stay put, because the little round spheres and balls, they just want to roll around. And between the non-magnetic black sand that I couldn't pull out with a magnet, the real fine gold that you can kind of see on the right and left side that's in there, that's dust. It's probably 200-300 mesh. And then the round spheres, it just was a difficult panning session. But I got it pretty clean, and this is mostly gold. And there's enough, gold there and little enough waste material that it'll be no problem to take the non-magnetic black sand and stuff into the flux when I melt it. So the next step is to melt it and produce a button and be able to weigh it out and talk about what the results of my Ghost Town gold find was. Okay, I'm just getting started here. Gonna turn on the propane. Okay, got the propane on to put in okay, I've got it on. The flames are adjusted. It's kind of tricky to get it adjusted right.
Now I've got my my gold in there in the carbon crucible. It's a crucible like this one. This is another one of the carbon crucibles. This one has been used a few times. But the flux that I mix, people ask me a lot of times about my flux. I don't use Chapman flux because there's some problems with Chapman flux. One of the things that Chapman says that's just totally wrong is that calcium fluoride is a thinner. It's actually a thickener. We don't get temperature sufficient to really melt calcium carbonate, and so I don't use that. What I do use is about 2/3 sodium carbonate, and sodium carbonate is easily obtainable. You can, the normal sodium bicarbonate that you can buy just at the grocery store, if you heat it at moderate temperatures like 250, something like that, Fahrenheit, it will lose the bicarbonate part of it and just turn into sodium carbonate. So I have sodium carbonate 2/3 and then 1/3 borax, and that's what my flux is, and I'll be using this, and that's what I use for melting my gold. So we just need to give it some time because it takes a while for the flame to really get going, and once it's going, then we'll be making a pour. So I'm just going to turn it off, let it run for a while, and then we'll come back and film it again when I make the pour. Okay, you can see by the flame, I can tell you it's pretty much there. I got out my heat gun and did a check on it, and the temperature is right. So it's time that I start warming the, this is a graphite block that I'm going to use. We're going to keep it warmed up to temperature. We won't get it red hot or anything like that, but I'll get it nice and warm so that when the pour is made, it will go right in there and work properly. Got to keep the thing fully warmed, and it takes some time to warm it up. But when we reach the right point, I will turn the fire off, and we will do the thing. Okay. Now, I'll put it right here. Time to turn things off. Oh. Okay, we're off. Set my channel locks aside. I'm going to take this off. Little spacer ring off. Now take this, and you can see I'm going to pour it in. All right, and I put this back in, put the spacer ring back on, and put that back on. I did see the metal pour out. I don't know if you could see it, but the metal, the flux is kind of thick, and the metal is very liquid. So when I poured it in, the metal went all in there, and it was fine. Gonna let it cool a minute, and then in a minute I'm just gonna go away for a minute and let it cool, and then we'll pop it out and take a look at the bead.
All right, so here's the button, and it's on the scale. It's 4.224 grams, and I figure this button is about 75% pure, something like that. It's a little bit high silver, and so that gives us just about a little over 3 grams, or real close to 1/10 of an ounce. Well, 1/10 of an ounce of gold, that's pretty good results. I'm be real pleased with 3+ grams. Couple of pennyweight, and so I certainly will be out there again. I'm sure that there's more there to be had, to be dug, but I just didn't have tools for digging a deep hole in harder rock and, basically material that's just weathered a little bit. And so next time I'll be out there, I'll have a big pick and I'll have a pry bar and maybe even feathers and wedges and my electric little drill. Anyway, one way or another, I'll be out there doing it again, and I'm sure we'll be able to get at least this much. But I was real pleased with this find. It's a great start, and it shows you that you really can find gold in and around ghost town areas where the old-time miners were actively working. So I was happy with my ghost town gold. And like I say, I will be back. Now, the whole thing about finding gold, it's a skill, and it's something that you need to know what you're doing to be successful. And in order to give that kind of knowledge and success to you, I wrote a book. It's called Fistful of Gold. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about my book right now. So this is my book, Fistful of Gold. You can see it's an encyclopedia distilling down my 45 plus years of prospecting experience plus my degree into the parts that you need to know. I spent most of 10 years writing this. It was not just a simple effort that, I sat down and wrote it. You can see it's like 250,000 words. It's not something you're going to read through in a day or maybe even a week or more. But it's got a lot of information and reference material that you can come back to. You can read it once and read it again and get more out of it because there's just that much depth of material in this. I wrote this book because I want you to have the skills to go out and find fistfuls of gold for yourself. And if you have the skills and know what you're doing and get out in the field and make a real effort, you can find significant gold. It's not easy. I'm not going to tell you that because, gold, it wouldn't be, close to $2,000 an ounce, which is what it is right now. It wouldn't be so expensive if it was easy to find. It's not easy. You just can't walk out into an old gold field and start picking up nuggets. If the gold was easy to see and find, the old timers would have picked it up and taken it themselves. So you got to have skill. You got to know what you're doing. You got to be able to master what it takes to find gold, and you've got to have the persistence and put in the effort to find the material, to find the gold or diamonds or gemstones that you're looking for. Now, this book has geology, it has facts about gold, it has stuff about diamonds and platinum, but it's mostly about gold deposits, how gold deposits form, how placer and nuggets form, all the questions you've probably wanted to ask. The book is available on Amazon, and I'll put a link to it in the description below, but you can look up on Amazon, Fistful of Gold, and by Chris Ralph, and find this book. Now, the book, if you look at it, it has a very high rating. It has like a 4.7 or 4.8 out of 5, which is really high. I mean, it's hard to please everybody, but I'm close to a 5 out of 5, not far from it, right? So it's been out. I've sold more than 15,000 copies of this book, and I've had tremendous response, tremendous positive response by the people who buy it. And I think if you buy it, you'll be just as happy with it. Now, in addition to my book, I also have a website that I do, and I'll tell you a little bit more about my website and show you some images from the website right now. Now, my website is NevadaOutbackGems.com, and I'll put a link to the prospecting page, this prospecting encyclopedia page, down in the description below, but you can find it at Nevada Outback Gems. I sell some jewelry, turquoise, other gemstones there. I don't always keep the inventory perfectly up to date, so if you're interested in anything you see, do contact me first before trying to send me money or anything, because I want you to be able to get what you order. But the website has lots of different stories, old adventures, even some stories, true stories from the old-time miners of the 1800s. So I think it's something you'll find interesting. The other thing I want to go back to is that
all my comments, I want you guys to ask questions on the comments for my videos. I answer 100% of the comments that are made on my videos. Now, sometimes if somebody just says, hey, great video, I really enjoyed it, the comment may just be, well, I'm really glad you liked it. Or if it's a simple question. And sometimes I get people who ask me questions, I would take a book to answer that question. And I recommend that they just buy the book. But I answer all my questions. I try to help people as much as I can. I'm here to help you. So if you're interested in gaining the skills, if you're interested in knowing what you need to know to be successful, follow along with me. Subscribe to my channel, hit the bell so that they'll let you know when I come out with new videos, and I try to do that pretty much every Saturday morning. And you'll enjoy with me, you'll come along with me, we'll have an adventure together, and we will find some nice gold and see what it's really like getting out in the woods, or the deserts, or the mountains, wherever we land, wherever the gold is, wherever the diamonds are, wherever the platinum is. Come along, we'll have some fun. And I'll see you real soon on the next video.